Yo, it's been a while. I'm in the park. It's beautiful. It's raining outside. It's like early June now, and I saw like a TikTok the other day. It was pretty good. It was here's how it goes. Wrote it down. I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to solve. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for love, and God gave me troubled people to help. My prayers were answered. I don't know if you guys do this, but you should if you're not. You can ask God for specific virtues and areas that you want to grow in. Like, God, please give me the strength of courage. Help me grow in courage. Help me grow in humility. Help me grow in all these different areas. Give me strength. That way I can work on your behalf. Help me to be your champion. And I ask God for fortitude, kind of casually, not really thinking through the implications of if God wants to help me grow in fortitude, it's going to be a painful time. So fortitude, for those not in the know, is one of the 4 cardinal virtues. It can be practiced by anyone. Yeah, the pagans practice fortitude, and it's kind of like endurance. It's like the virtue that allows us to overcome fear and remain steady in our will in the face of all obstacles, physical and spiritual. So it's not just, courage is like a momentary thing, but fortitude is like a long, slow burn, especially when you're tired. And so I think it's really important to cultivate fortitude, because you have to endure in many areas of life. Anything that's worth it, you have to endure over a long term. And in order to rebuild Christendom, that's like a over the span of lifetimes, perhaps, it's going to require fortitude to do so. So it's paramount that we cultivate this virtue. And also, Jordan Peterson talks about how we need to become the man who is going to be reliable at our Father's funeral. And how can we do that? How can we really know that we'd be able to handle the pressure, that kind of pressure, if we're never tested, if we're not like voluntarily or involuntarily going through tests occasionally that are stressful? There are trees out there that will fall over if there's not enough wind, because they're so reliant upon the stressor of the wind in order to grow strong roots and strong bark, that they will literally fall over if there's no wind. So we need storms in our life. We need obstacles. We need problems, stresses, obligations, unexpected problems, deadlines, annoyances. We need situations where we have a lack of time, resources, and energy. And we need it to happen over an extended period of time in order for us to grow in fortitude. So most people can handle a stressful day, but can you handle a stressful month? That's a different story altogether. So I haven't posted for a month because I was going through one of those storms, and there's just a lot going on in my life. I had like 3 programming work deadlines in 2 weeks, and a lot of stuff went wrong with that. Plus I was traveling. Travel puts stress on you, and there's a lot involved with that, as much fun as is. And also I've been doing Wendler's 531 strength training program, so I've been lifting compound lifts, and I've been lifting pretty heavy, and that's fried my central nervous system because I did it wrong. I made too large of a leap in the program. For those not in the know about strength training, if you're trying to become strong, if you value strength like me, the best way to do it is by doing compound lifts, which are squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press. And so in order to grow in those lifts, you have to do them enough. But eventually it gets to the point when you get to become an intermediate lifter like myself, where it's hard to do both squats and deadlifts in the same week. It's hard to progress in both simultaneously. And so I was looking for a program because my squat was going way up, but my deadlift was lagging behind. I just wasn't training enough where I could do both in 1 week. And I also joined a jiu-jitsu gym. I'm a white belt right now. I've been doing it a couple months now, and I wanted something where I could do jiu-jitsu and not be just completely fried just from doing deadlifts and squats in the same time. So I did a bunch of research. There's a really good video you should check out. I'll link it down below. If you're interested in learning about strength training programs, It's the way to go, really. Instead of relying upon your motivation, just program it out, or just use 5x5 or starting strength. There's all these different programs you can learn about that are really beneficial. So I found out about Wendler's 5-3-1, but there's a video by Alexander Bromley. He creates some really great content. I'll link it down below. It's called the Strength Training Program Tier List. I watched that. That's really solid. I was just, after Lent, I was looking for some sort of program. So I settled upon 5-3-1 because it's not so intense that you can't do jujitsu or go hiking or play volleyball on top of it. So I did it, but the problem that I ran into was I was fasting so much during Lent that I was weaker when I calculated out my 1 rep max for 5-3-1, and so I was way too strong in the first cycle because I regained my strength like a lot quicker than anticipated as soon as I started eating more calories every single day, and I just got strong super quick. And then so by the time I got to the second cycle of it, so 5-3-1 it's a cyclical program, and you basically, for your benching, squatting, deadlifting, and overhead pressing, each week for 3 weeks, it starts out, the first week is a set of 3x5, the second week is a set of 3x3, and the third week is a set of 5, a set of 3, and a set of 1, and this is in each lift. And it starts out with lower intensity but higher volume, and then by the third week it's higher intensity, lower volume. And so by the time I complete, and then the fourth week is the deload week. So I skipped the deload week, and I was so strong during the first cycle of it, during the first 3 weeks, that I recalculated my 1 rep max to be way higher, and I just jumped straight into a second cycle. But that just didn't work. I was too strong, and my body couldn't, my body was strong, but I wasn't able to handle the recovery. And so I could do the lifts, but my brain was just fried because my central nervous system was fried. And you know, when you're training your central nervous system, when you're doing compound lifts, you're training your whole nervous system to be able to generate force. And so my whole system was taxed. And then I had all these project deadlines on top of it, and I was traveling on top of that. So all those stressors together basically was a trial. I felt like crap for like 2 or 3 weeks over the past month, and I just fell behind on everything else. All of the other things I was working on went on to the back burner just because I had all these work deadlines that I had to deal with, and I was fatigued. So I had to like learn a lot about myself, and it was a test, and it came involuntarily. I didn't voluntarily kind of decide to grow in this virtue of fortitude, but I felt like I had to grow in virtue in order to just make it through and just fulfill all my duties. So it made me realize that in a way it was bad that I wasn't prudent enough to foresee these bad things happening, like the work deadlines. I could have gotten some of the work done earlier, and I could have calculated the program correctly, but I made some mistakes. And so even though I made some mistakes, I think the fruits of it were that I was able to grow in the virtue of fortitude, and that I was able to kind of see now that that's how you grow in fortitude, and to not casually ask God for it, to take it seriously, and to realize that in order for us to grow in fortitude and be able to handle future stressful situations, we have to be able to handle less stressful situations. And the way that you're able to do that is through testing yourself and through practicing, by adding stresses onto your life voluntarily. So if you're feeling pretty light, like life is pretty easy, it might be time to add on a little bit of stress, and maybe have it occasionally. You know, you have to have times when you're less stressed too, but maybe once or twice a year, just take on extra responsibilities, extra stresses. And here are some things that you could add that to your life to make your life harder. How about eating less, fasting? How about being around babies that are screaming at night and waking you up in the middle of the night? And how about sleeping less? How about training compound lifts, which are hard, like doing squats and deadlifts? That's just hard enough as is, but training those hard, how about that? How about doing a martial art where you're you're just getting destroyed doing jujitsu? How about you know, dealing with more, taking on deadlines, like having other people hold you accountable for things? How about volunteering for things in your community? Just taking on additional things and kind of trying to stretch yourself a little bit, stretch your capacity a little bit, to the point where it's actually uncomfortable. And I think I'm going to have to start doing that occasionally as well. That way I can test myself. Because if everything is just smooth and always accounted for, that takes discipline, yes, but you're not going to test yourself to the point where things are truly uncomfortable and you're feeling like crap. And I feel like you need to have those moments in life. I think that's part of the reason why having kids, I don't have kids yet, but having kids can test you in that way to grow in fortitude. And it just seems like courage is easier to exercise. You know, there's certain virtues that are easier to exercise one-offs, but fortitude is hard, and patience is another one that's hard because it's like over an extended period of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys decide to take on more of a cross in your life voluntarily occasionally and to stress yourself out a little bit. But also, another thing you'll learn if you are going through truly stressful situations is that the consequences of your actions are more immediate, because when you're stretched to the limits, for example, I ate an ice cream sandwich when I was like really tired, and I immediately crashed like an hour later, and I felt so terrible. Like if I was feeling fine, I probably could take the hit, like the blood sugar crash, but because I was so stretched, the ice cream sandwich really was like, it was like painful to like eat it, and it really made me not want to eat any more ice cream sandwiches. And going to bed, like I noticed a huge difference going to bed early versus hanging out late talking with my roommates. So I started reading, I figured out a way to go to bed early because I started reading a fiction book, Terry Pratchett, and it positively incentivized me to go to bed early because I wanted to get back into that story. So that gave me a reason to go to bed early instead of just hanging out late into the night and then being always down on sleep. So you kind of learn, you kind of cut some fat out of your life a little bit when you're stretched thin, when things are harder. And I think we have to, because things are currently good, the better it, the more that you can voluntarily impose stressors onto your life in order to train yourself, the better. So hope you guys like this. I'll see you in the next one.